Alright, on the last problem I used an expanded table. And on the expanded table it got really messy, but I talked about how you can make a smaller T-chart. That's what I'm going to be using for the next 3 problems when I'm graphing. On this problem right here, I'll be graphing this 2x plus 1. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be plugging in -2, then -1, and so on and so forth. So when I plug in -2, I have 2 times -2 plus 1. Well, 2 times -2 is -4 plus 1, which is -3. Then I'll plug in -1. 2 times -1 is -2 plus 1. -2 plus 1 is -1. Then I'll plug in 0. I have 0 plus 1, which is 1. Then I'm going to plug in 1. So I have 2 plus 1, which is 3. Then I'm going to plug in 2. And that's 4 plus 1, which is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and graph these ordered pairs. I've got -2, -3. I've got -1, -1. I've got 0, 1. I've got 1, 3, and 2, 5. Again, I got a straight line. In my second example, you notice a change. I now have an x squared in the problem. Let's see what happens when we have an x squared. Still going to go through the same process where I'm plugging in the different x values. So I've got -2 squared minus 3. -2 squared is 4 minus 3, which is a 1. Plug in -1. -1 squared minus 3. That's 1 minus 3, which is -2. Plug in 0. 0 minus 3, or 0 squared minus 3, is 0 minus 3, which is -3. Plug in 1. 1 squared minus 3, that's 1 minus 3, which is -2. And then plug in 2. 2 squared minus 3 is 4 minus 3, which is a 1. When I graph these ordered pairs, I have -2, 1, -1, -2, 0, -3, 1, -2, and 2, 1. Notice this does not give me a straight line. It gives me a U-shaped figure. The last example for graphing is one that has absolute value. Let's see what type of shape we get for an absolute value. Same process. Put in -2. So -2 minus 2 is -4, but the absolute value of -4 is 4. Plug in -1. -1 minus 2 is -3. The absolute value of -3 is 3. Plug in 0. 0 minus 2 is -2. The absolute value of -2 is 2. Plug in 1. 1 minus 2 is -1. Absolute value of -1 is 1. Plug in 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. If you go ahead and graph these, you will be misled slightly, because if I only graph these ordered pairs, you will believe that this is a straight line. However, let's make our T-chart just a little bit more expanded, and let's look at 3, because I know what takes place. When you plug in 3, 3 minus 2 is 1. The absolute value of 1 is 1. So that ordered pair is right here. Absolute values actually make these. They never make anything else. So if we look back at the 3 types of graphs we have a line, which is when there's just a plain x. We have a U, or a parabola, when there's an x squared. And we have V's when there's absolute values. The last little part for this is the word rule. I want to talk about writing a rule. Writing a rule just means writing an expression, and you can get it from the words that are given. So an engraver charges the setup fee of $10 plus $2 for every word engraved. These are the number of words. So what we're going to say is it has $10 plus $2 for every word engraved. So we don't know how many words, except they give me 5, 10, 15, 20. So I'm going to put X there. Then we can finish out this chart. Again, these are the 2 columns that I've been working with, but you could use this expanded form as well. So you'd have 10 plus 2 times 5. That'd be 10 plus 10, which is 20. And I'll go ahead and stop there. The ordered pair would be 520. The biggest thing I want to talk about was the rule, and what it means is just to write an expression.